I got to bring Philly and Chicago to the front of the congregation. As a matter of fact, there's no need in me explaining it. Let me just go ahead and break it down for you. Let's get started with the show. Hit a like for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat.
Well, good morning. The investigation continues in all of these cases. The youngest victim was 16-year-old Rayshawn Hood. Now, he's the grandson of a community activist who for more than 20 years has been advocating for an end to violence.
It triggers me back to why I started doing this part of the ministry in the first place and help the community that are suffering.
Let me show y'all something really quickly. This is a community activist, right? This is in Chicago. 16 people shot, at least 6 people fatally over the weekend. Now, if you look at this one crime scene, because it happened all over Chicago, okay? I'm going to be reading that super chat shortly. Thank you, Kingdom Legacy. I don't forget any super chats. I don't ask y'all for it, but I definitely appreciate it, so I got to acknowledge y'all no matter what it is that y'all give. The highest number I see over there is 28. I see 28. That's bullets. That's shell casings in one shooting. 16 people shot, at least 6 fatally in Chicago over the weekend. 28 bullets right there in this particular spot. Community activist. He's not just a community activist. Let me rewind it for you and what she said.
The activist who for more than 20 years has been advocating for an end to violence.
It triggers me back to why I started doing this part of the ministry in the first place and help the community that are suffering generation after generation from gun violence.
These are the spaces where all of the shootings took place. 1400 South Spalding, East Lake, South Ada, Kedzie Street, South Evans, South Marshall, West 81st Street, and South Emerald Street. 6 people fatally over the weekend, at least 16 people shot.
Since Friday night, police say at least 16 people have been reported shot in Woodlawn, West Pullman, Auburn Gresham, Chicago Lawn, Englewood, North Lawndale, and the Loop. In Little Village on Sunday morning around 1.
And the Loop.
25 officers responded to a call of a person shot. Once on scene, they found a 29-year-old male in a flipped-over vehicle with a gunshot wound to the head. He was transported to Mount Sinai Hospital in critical condition and later died from his injuries. Officials say the youngest victim was 16-year-old Rayshawn Hood, who was found on the sidewalk with a gunshot wound to his chest. He was transported to Comer Children's Hospital, where he was pronounced dead.
That's why we have got to stand up as a human society and denounce this.
Y'all missing it. The youngest victim was Rayshawn Hood. Let me show you something. That's Reverend Robin Hood. They have the same last name. They're related. The person that is supposed to be working in the community activist for over 20 years, that's been dedicating his life to it, his relative is one of the youngest victims that was shot over the weekend. He's not just talking on the news for no reason. He's telling you that he's also a victim of getting his own blood taken away from him over the weekend. And y'all keep telling us to go back to the hood. Y'all keep telling us to go back to the hood. Let me show you him. 16 years old. That's him. It's a child. His brain wasn't even going to be fully developed for another 7 years, 8 years. These are the communities that y'all keep talking about that we need to go back to. I'm telling you that if you have the ability to be able to get out, make sure that you change your behavior and don't take your negative behavior and those learned behaviors and that black culture with you to wherever it is that you're going to go, and get the fuck out. Leave. Don't ever go back to the hood. It's not for you. It's not for you.
Victim was 16-year-old Rayshawn Hood, who was found on the sidewalk with a gunshot wound to his chest. He was transported to Comer Children's Hospital, where he was pronounced dead.
That's why we have got to stand up as a human society and denounce this. If more and more people get numb to violence, the worse we'll become.
Pastor Hood will host a press conference later this morning. He's expected to announce a reward for any information that leads to an arrest or conviction in his grandson's case.
That's his grandson, y'all. That's his blood. That's his grandson. I couldn't imagine living to see my grandson get killed on a sidewalk and die in Children's Hospital. Can you imagine you live in a place that's so wicked, that's so ugly, that's so torn, that's so immersed in this culture, that your grandson, you as a community activist, and they have no respect for you or your grandson, and they will literally leave him splattered across the sidewalk with no regard for him whatsoever. And it's a strong possibility that they won't even get caught. That's the interesting thing about this thing. That's what y'all not getting. They still out there. And somebody else also knows who they are. So he says, listen, we need to denounce violence. I am. And you know what they called me for it? A lame. Let me share something else with you. Something else you may not be familiar with. All right? Stick with me on this, because it's not just Chicago. We're not just going to bring Chicago to the front of the congregation. We're going to have this conversation in its entirety. I want you to see that this is not just Chicago. This happens all across the world. This happens all across the United States. This happens because of the culture, not the environment that you live in. It's not just the city. It's the culture that you take with you from city to city.
A violent and deadly weekend in Philadelphia. At least 3 people were killed and nearly a dozen injured. And that includes several police officers, one of them struck by a car while trying to disperse a large crowd in North Philly.
So a police officer dies also in the over 12 people that are hit over in Philly, because he was actually trying, because y'all keep saying, well, we're the police officers. Y'all do know that these are people too. Y'all do know that these people have families that they're trying to get home to. That every day somebody is praying that they come back safely because they decided that they wanted to participate and serve the communities that they were advocates for. I know several police officers that are now the officers within the communities that they grew up in because they were passionate about changing the relationship between the community and the people that helped them and the first responders to any kind of issue that they would have within that community. And you know what they've done against those people? They've turned against them. When they try to disperse a crowd, you then become a victim. You then become a victim. See, one of the things that we don't talk about often at times within this culture is we don't talk about all of the police officers that die on a regular basis that get hit up. We don't talk about all of the people that suffer and the repercussions that come along with the widows that then have to pray every single day that the person that went out to protect the community never comes back. Got to pray every day that they come home. Every time that they come home, it's a sigh, it's a relief. Over the weekend, I was downtown. I was here, right? Friday, before I shot out over to do the interview that I'm going to release on Patreon. I seen a bunch of young recruits for the new Detroit Police Academy. A lot of them look like children. They were running, I guess because they were graduating and stuff like that. So the police was blocking off the streets in order for them to run and do their little ceremony or whatever like that. They look like children. and all I seen was victims. All I seen was victims running down the street, looked like children.
Here's our Cheyenne Corinne.
When it gets to this point, it's like, why am I not surprised? Like, it's urban genocide at this point.
Neighbors reacting to yet another violent weekend in Philly with multiple people killed and at least 10 injured, including police officers.
Even what other cities are doing, like they enforcing curfew rules and stuff. They're putting kids in jail. They're taking them to the police station until their parents can pick them up or until they can be dropped off somewhere by police. They're enforcing rules.
And police also say overnight they had to break up a large group of people gathering here on Broad Street. Just take a look at these tire markings left from several cars.
That's the streets. Those are the streets that I paid my I had to pay property taxes for all of my properties over this weekend, and it was a lot of money, right? And I had to pay the HOA fees for some of the properties and all of that. Then I decided to look at them, right? And as I was looking at them, I was seeing that the majority of my property taxes go towards the county. It go towards schools. And I pay a lot in property taxes. And people care nothing about it, right? They don't care about the schools. They don't care about the roads. They don't care about any of this stuff that we have to use as a community every single day. The ones that tear it up the most are the ones that take the most from it. They don't even contribute into the pot. I pay an egregious amount of property taxes we got summer taxes and then we got winter taxes. I pay an egregious amount of taxes every single year. And the people that actually tear it up is not the ones that even put into the pot. They don't even pay property taxes.
Cars doing spinouts. Now, this also happening near Temple University and this Sunoco gas station.
It was like, I finally registered, like, wait a minute, because it was kind of white noise for a bit. I'm just a block away, but then I was like,
reading super chat shortly.
Several officers also were injured while dispersing the crowd of nearly 500 people. One was hit by a car, causing a broken ankle.
And what's really sad is the city's starting to become accustomed to this. This is the norm, and it shouldn't be the norm. We need to get a hold of the city. We need to go back and the basics, law and order, and start doing it, the job, even with the undermanned people that we do have.
One of the shootings happened in North Philly when a man on a dirt bike reportedly shot and injured a man and woman. 3 people also were shot, including a woman with special needs in the Grays Ferries neighborhood.
Our officers are followers, and we need the leadership to step in, give the support to the police, and let us do what we need to do to get this.
Who's the mayor? Who's the police chief over in Philly? I'm just curious. What is the leadership over in Philly? We familiar with what's going on over in Chicago. Somebody email me who the leadership, Anton Daniels 413@gmail.com. Somebody email me who the leadership is over in Philly. We need to bring them to the front of the congregation. I'm curious. I need to understand where the hierarchy and who the voters are putting in office in order to understand what's happening out here in these streets.
Back under control, because it seems like a recurring theme every week.
A man in his 20s also was killed near Temple University. Jeremiah Pratt works in that area with kids and says being engaged in community programs can help them stay safe and out of trouble.
Young people need more experience and stuff like what I'm doing right now, to be honest. Like, young people should be learning how to develop their minds, develop activities.
No arrests have been made in any of these shootings.
Let me stop right there. No arrests. 12 shootings, 3 people fatally over in Philly. 16 shootings, 6 fatally, including a 16-year-old over in Chicago. And y'all want to know how many arrests was made? Donuts. The same way that they was doing donuts in the street, the same donut that you picked up on your way to work. 0 arrests. And you know what the worst part about this whole situation is? Y'all know who the culprits are. You know who they are. You know who the pedophiles are in your family. You know who the killers are in your neighborhood. You know who the dope boys and the drug dealers are that's fucking poisoning the community and running down the property values. You know the people that's beating on their chicks and getting into fights every day. You know the hoes that's out here setting dudes up and getting them murked and getting them robbed in their hotel rooms. Y'all friends with them, you family members with them, you neighbors with them, you cool with them, and you think that it's cool until it's on your front door. That's the one thing that is very interesting about the black community, is because we keep talking about children's programs and more police officers. The police only responds to the crime. In order to be able to prevent this thing from happening, you have to take a vested interest in what's going on in your community. You know who the criminals are. Everybody in every hood and every family knows who the criminals are. You harbor them, you protect them, you wear free Ray t-shirts on if the police just so happen to catch a break and then arrest them, and then you hate the police as a result of it. You hate the prosecutor, you hate the jailers, you hate everybody that's actually trying to prevent this monster from being back on the street, but you don't actually want to do the thing that's in the best interest of your community. This culture is absolutely trash. Trash. Trash, man. I hate it. I hate everything about it.